We good?
I'm trying to move Bob Dupuy over.
Robert, if you need me to handle it,
I keep asking him and he keeps declining.
he might be away right now. I'll keep pestering him there.
Okay.
So the only one we have there is Bob?
Oh, Donald is on also.
Don's on?
Yeah.
Yep.
He is on this panel.
There he is. Hi, Don.
Good evening.
Good evening. You're gonna reel Bob in at some point?
Is that-
Bob on?
Bob is on, but he's declining the panelist to be able to talk.
Okay. We'll bring this meeting to order. Anything under public comment? No. Okay. First on the agenda is Zach regarding marijuana licenses in Wellfleet. You can go to the mic if you want.
Just want anyone who wants a copy of these are the warrants from town meetings in 2018, so I'm going to reference them, so let's just take a look at those.
Oh, okay.
Just regarding dispensaries in Wellfleet.
Thank you.
I sent these ahead of time, but just keep going.
Okay.
And can I get your full name?
Yes, Zachary.
Oh, okay, Zachary Ment?
Zachary Ment. I'm Zachary Ment. I'm the founder owner of the Piping Plover Dispensary on Main Street. My wife's from Wellfleet, went to middle school here, grew up here, and my wife and my family, we live here. So I'm here to speak to you today about putting some appropriate limits on dispensaries in Wellfleet and why I think now is an appropriate time. And so just want to address the fact that I have a personal stake in that passing, and I'm here to try to solicit the board's
Oh, they are.
help in how and when to do that. I think that the board and legal counsel is probably more appropriate than it coming from someone with such a stake in it as myself, but I think I can explain the reasons that it's beneficial for the town and to do this now, and why I think this board is the right body to take that forward. So I just want to give you I don't want to take too much of your time. I know there's a lot of important issues to talk about tonight, but I want to just give a little brief history, and that's why I handed out these warrants about how we got here. So, see, I got some notes. So 2012, there was a historic referendum in the state to legalize medical marijuana. Shortly after, all of the municipalities in Massachusetts, including Wellfleet, drafted and passed zoning bylaws for medical marijuana establishments. And so Wellfleet has that in its zoning bylaw, referred to as RMDs, or registered medical dispensaries. The zoning for that was an overlay district, which restricted those facilities to South Wellfleet mostly, and in the commercial district, I believe. But you have the proposed amendment in front of you, and can look in the zoning bylaw to the exact placement of it. Fast forward to 2016, there was another referendum at the state level legalizing adult use marijuana or recreational marijuana. Not to be confused with retail marijuana. Retail was one of the license types that was legalized in that referendum. So the state has retail as well as cultivation and manufacturing. And you can kind of see, again, in that indefinitely postponed warrant for the annual town meeting, you can see those pretty well defined, I think, by the legal counsel at that time. And that's similar to a lot of the bylaws that were passed around the state of Massachusetts. I don't know whether this was intended in the original law or in the rules that followed, but what the rule is for who has to have dispensaries in their town was the state said that any municipality that voted majority for the referendum at the state level was required, they could regulate these facilities, the adult use facilities in the town, but they had to do so in a way that would allow at least 20% of however many liquor licenses, places you can buy beer and wine or liquor, so the mobile, Wellfleet Marketplace, the liquor stores, and so on. So that comes out right now to 3. So they had to make rules that would allow at least 3 to exist in Wellfleet, was the state's mandate. importantly at that time. In response to that referendum, one of the warrants from the annual town meeting was put forward to amend the original medical laws to include all of the different uses that came along with the recreational referendum. That warrant was postponed indefinitely at town meeting and never brought up again. I don't know whether it was because of that was postponed or its failure, or just by happenstance, but there was a special town meeting in the same year, and you also have that warrant in front of you relating to marijuana laws, which gave the select board discretion to limit the number of specifically retail adult use or retail recreational, what we call dispensaries, in the town at their discretion. And they did that eventually they did that by limiting the number of host agreements that they give out. And a host agreement outlines the different rules of the game between the dispensary and the municipality where they're operating, and is a requirement to go to the state and get your license to operate in the state. The other requirement is to have a special permit, and where there wasn't an explicit zoning bylaw in Wellfleet, all of the operating dispensaries were able to get special permits, working with the ZBA, legal counsel, as a workaround by treating it somewhat like the medical marijuana bylaw and somewhat like retail. And there was a lot of, and at least in my experience, there was a lot of confusion when we went to the ZBA about which it was most similar to or which we were following. They seem to, when you look at the permits that were issued, they seem to be following a combination of both in a somewhat ad hoc way. So, for example, when another dispensary followed us and got their special permit, I got an email saying, hey, we restricted your hours based on the medical laws, but we restricted theirs less, so we didn't want to be unfair. You can go ahead and open later. That kind of thing. So it's just a little bit messy, but we made it work, and we got our licenses. And there was the select board. Fast forward, let's see. The select board ended up issuing 5 host agreements, us being one of them. And of those 5, 3 opened. And when the 3 were opened, they decided to take up their mandate to limit the number of dispensaries. In that discussion, everybody on the board seemed to agree that 3 was an appropriate number, but there was a local family that had been trying to open the dispensary for a long time, what is now the Grateful Mind, and his host agreement at the time was expired. So he needed a new one, so the decision of the board was to limit it to 4 to allow him, probably rightly so, to continue his quest to open, and he eventually did. So that sort of, one more piece of the timeline is before he opened, he had his host agreement. One of the 3 closed in financial difficulty, and was reopened illegally by another operator, and was found to be in violation of their host agreement with the town, and then were shut down subsequently by the Cannabis Control Commission. So it seems like it's already a bit of a struggle with 3 open in a town of 3,000 some people, 30,000 visitors. 4 where it was set there in order to allow a local family a chance to pursue their dream of having one. But I think it's much more appropriate to look at the number that, to avoid like a revolving door in this industry. Specifically, why now? The state, at the same time, the industry has had a bit of a downturn while all other prices have gone up. The price of cannabis has gone down, and there's been just an oversupply in the industry. And the bigger players, the bigger chains, multi-state, public players have lobbied the state and are increasing the limits on how many stores they can have in the state. The state initially limited how many stores any one owner could have in the state to 3 to allow small businesses to thrive. And so both at the House and state, both at the Senate and the House, State House, there's bills that have passed to increase that number as somewhat of an exit ramp for struggling larger companies that are starting to exit the market in Massachusetts. So we see I see this wave of consolidation coming to the market, and think it's really important that Wellfleet act now to make sure that we don't have a malignant force come in and try to bully the small businesses that we worked so hard to get into place. So, like I said, there's other ways to petition to town meeting, but it seems appropriate to just discuss it with this board first at least. And I think if this board, in working with town council, could put forward to town meeting a correct zoning bylaw. It doesn't need to be as in-depth, I don't think. Again, it's not my opinion that counts really, it's yours, but I don't see all of the details that were in the last one that was turned down to be necessary, but something simple that would add it to the use table and outline the proper ways of obtaining a special permit, and then also having an appropriate limit on how many there could be in the town is very worthwhile and in the best interest of the town and the character of Wellfleet.
Anything else?
That's it, that's my pitch. Any questions?
One question, just for clarification. Where does, without using names, where is the fourth location status at this moment in time, since the host agreement ran out?
So there is none, from my understanding, speaking with town manager, that there's no host agreement in place. They've been aware that the successor that purchased the insolvent Terps was interested, but I haven't heard, no one's heard from them since, and I think that it seems to be, from my closeness with the industry, that there's a lot of talk of waiting for these laws to change, and that the demand for these paper licenses will pick back up once the state has expanded the number of licenses that the bigger companies can have.
Okay. All right. Any board members have any questions? Bonnie?
Yeah, I just, I'm a little confused about exactly what you're asking for.
Oh, I'm going to
So-
skip that part, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I mean, so you refer to this April 20th, 2018 warrant, and it is indeed very detailed. And then there's another one that is just limiting the number of marijuana dispensaries in town.
Right.
And that sounds like the law, the state law limit that you quoted to us, the 20%.
It refers to that, yeah.
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 So does this warrant, protect the small businesses that are already here, first of all? I mean, because
yeah.
you were saying about the big danger is of getting overtaken by the larger companies, although I don't know how they do that if you don't want to sell. But, yeah, so I'm just, I'd like to hear more about, what are the key provisions in a new bylaw that, you and your colleagues are
Sure.
looking for?
Yeah. Well, just to clarify, because I was trying to, in interest of time, go pretty quickly through all that. The two bylaws you're looking at, one is a zoning bylaw that was indefinitely postponed.
Yeah.
So there is no zoning bylaw. The other one happened subsequently. And again, I'm not sure. We'd have to talk to town council or someone that knows whether that was as a result because the zoning bylaw failed. But either way, that one gave the discretion to, and it was a little bit confusing. A lot of Wellfletians are confused by the language. It gave them the discretion. A lot of folks thought it was limiting it to 3, and that was the understanding around town at the time. But it gave the discretion to the select board to make it at least 3.
Yeah.
So,
Oh, right.
just to be clear, I'm not asking for a bylaw like the one that was proposed. I'm just showing that one came in front of the town and was rejected. I think because it zoned, it limited the actual zoning to not just any retail or places where they seem appropriate now, where they are today. It restricted them to commercial districts in the south of Wellfleet specifically, and wasn't fair between North and South Wellfleet. Was what I've been told was the reasons for not wanting to adopt that bylaw. But again, it's very in-depth and probably has too much there's outdated reasons for all of those in there, that they were just taking a shortcut and using the medical marijuana zoning bylaw that had to be written before any of these things existed. So to fast forward today, I think it is important, like I was saying, they also didn't know at the time that the state was going to require a special permit in order to get a license. So we had to find a workaround that was ad hoc. So I think it's important to have the use listed in the table and outline exactly what requirements will be. I don't know if I'm the right exact person to say that, but I know that maybe distances from schools, operating hours, things that neighbors may have an interest in, of where, zoning stuff, so that you're not using two other uses that aren't the use that we're talking about today, that you're trying to figure out and make it, what is it most similar to? It's a use in every other municipality's zoning bylaw, other than Wellfleet. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So what I'm asking
So
for.
in other words, what you're asking for is not written yet.
What I'm asking for is a limit in the zoning, and I think that, I know that would take 2/3 of the town vote, but I think that the town would support it, and I think it's the right thing for the town.
Okay.
Two things, so it's the limit and clarification on adding it to the use table and what conditions would be set for obtaining a special permit if you wanted to.
Through the chair,
Yes, Al?
if I may, just to summarize your concerns, maybe some portion of your concerns, to maybe eliminate things for the rest of the board. You've brought this to us because you want us to get in front of a perceived problem that you see coming down the road, mainly being that there is large moneyed interests that are operating intrastate in other states. As more and more states make recreational marijuana legal, that you have effectively corporations that could move in and create establishments in Wellfleet and push out the local establishments. Just as a
Correct, thank you.
So let me just piggyback on you.
Yeah.
So
Are you finished?
yes, please. No.
Okay.
so the concern being, at the moment, there's no limits. There's only minimums.
Correct.
There's
And
a,
it's totally up to the select board.
But also, if I may clarify what I believe your point to be, one of the ways that the town could protect itself from such, corporations moving in and throwing their weight around is through zoning bylaw.
Exactly.
So that would be us.
So without a zoning bylaw
Right.
in place, currently, the select board has no limitation on the number or whatever licenses they permit. And that's clearly a problem.
yeah, through you, Jerry, that's exactly correct. It's widely understood in the industry that there's weaker and stronger protections against such things, and the current is the weakest form, which is basically up to select board policy, which can be changed based on the select board makeup at the time. The next strongest is a general bylaw, which I believe takes, again, correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm new to this, more new than you, but general bylaw, which takes a majority vote of town, and then the strongest would be a zoning bylaw, which would take 2/3 vote of town, if I understand that correctly. And a lot of municipalities have it in both the zoning bylaw and the general bylaw for that reason.
Well, I'm very sympathetic, if I may.
Absolutely.
I'm very sympathetic to your concerns. I agree wholeheartedly. I mean, for the same reason that there was such a uproar about Dunkin' Donuts moving in, for the same reason why we're very concerned about lots of other corporations and any number of other industries moving into Wellfleet, sort of distorting the atmosphere, the community that we have here. This is something that we should probably start to consider, and we need to at least clean up the bylaw or recommend amendments or some neatening up or tidying up of the bylaw that we have, but also perhaps to make things a bit stronger so that these large corporations, when they're surveying the map of potential locations to open up, they don't consider Wellfleet.
Through you, Jerry?
Yes.
Once we have an established business, unless I'm incorrect, they can acquire the other business. So that if we say there's 5 of something, and that's going to be max. At that point, big business has the opportunity of acquiring 5 things, number one, okay? So at that point, you're kind of putting a monopoly program in, which I'm opposed to. But we're only having a discussion tonight. So once you decide to limit something, remember, there's a reason why Dunkin' Donuts is here, because there was a restaurant there first. Now, if there was 3 more restaurants just like that, there'd probably be Starbucks and somebody else. So once the door is open, we've been told many times by town council that we can't stop that. I mean, I could be wrong, but, so that's question number 1, is how we would prevent the corporation from coming. I don't think we are capable of creating a bylaw or a zoning thing to do that. We may be able to stop more businesses, put a cap on it, but if you think we're going to put a cap on it to stop the big people coming, that's not going to work in my opinion. Number 2, if we're looking at to change how many stores we have, are we looking to also put a cap on cultivation? That's a question. Because we really don't seem to have that yet, do we?
We don't have any cultivation that I'm aware of in Wellfleet.
But we do have zoning for that.
We don't.
We don't have
So,
zoning?
again, the zoning bylaw in front of you was postponed indefinitely. It was not passed. So it's left without the edits proposed. That's the proposal that was turned down.
So if we have a cultivation program, it would be in South Wellfleet, though, in theory.
If it was a medical program, it would be in South Wellfleet. So it can be in any commercial district right now. But again, there is no zoning, so the zoning board would ad hoc have to decide how it would consider a recreational cultivation facility, because the definitions as you see them there were never entered into the zoning bylaw. We don't even have the definitions of these license types.
But I believe people have bought some of that property already believing it's coming, in my opinion. So
What's coming?
What?
the
Cultivations.
cultivation, something's coming next.
Cultivations are, if I may, through your chair, cultivations are closing rapidly in Massachusetts with the property prices and cost of labor. It's very unlikely.
Well, whether it is or it isn't, is this board, and I do understand we should protect small business, but I mean, are we supposed to make sure that because the state said we had to have zoning for something, it was a debacle from the word go, and now we have a gentleman standing here being concerned that he may or may not be in business unless we rewrite zoning to protect him? That's what I'm getting out of the conversation. And that irks me a little bit because Wellfleet has always allowed us to survive or die on our own. And I don't think that we should be in a position to be writing zoning to protect a business. If we're going to write a zoning to protect business, we should have spent the time a long time ago to protect housing. We haven't done that yet. So now why are we protecting one of the newest businesses in our zoning book or through the state at this point? I don't have anything else to say, but I think that this is a very, very slippery slope if you want to protect small businesses that really aren't that small, some of them owned by other businesses already, in my opinion. Thank you.
Jerry?
Yes.
So I agree with you, Alfred, in terms of what is it we want to do? Are we protecting small businesses, or are we limiting the number of facilities that provide marijuana in this town? I don't think we can protect small businesses, but I think we can limit the number of facilities that offer marijuana to the public, either recreationally or whatever. And I'm all for limiting the number.
Through the chair.
Bonnie?
Yeah, I'm remembering that we had long debates, what was it, 2 years ago, Jerry? About a potential bylaw to limit franchise businesses. And I forget what it was. I mean, this was, and we were told by council that you cannot discriminate by type of owner. right? That we can talk about land use, we can, just as we limit shops that sell alcohol, we could limit shops that sell marijuana, but I'm agreeing with Beth, yeah, that there's no way to specifically protect small businesses.
I'm not sure, Al, do you want to weigh in?
Oh, not if you have something important to say, huh?
Never have.
You have something good to add.
I think, and I won't put words in Zach's mouth, I think where the board needs to go, if we're going to enter into this discussion, is we really need to take, as much as we'd like to, or some of us would like to, take the personal aspect out of this. You own a facility. If something happens in your life that changes the way you choose to live and you move out of town of Wellfleet, you could sell the location subject to the host agreement being offered by the select board, and that could go to big corporations. We can't, as a planning board, determine ownership.
Right.
Ownership is a wide open door. We can, however, just like the liquor licenses, we can restrict the number. I think what's being asked tonight, and if I'm wrong, Zach, please tell me, I think what's being asked is, we've now gone through 2012 medical, which really was so restrictive in its nature, it didn't really go anywhere, but we felt we needed to have it. And then 2016, the state gets forced into it by vote. And therefore, we fell under the 20% regulation because we voted for it. I think what's being asked of us is to discuss whether or not, since we do, the select board does, grant liquor licenses, but they're restricted in how many. I think it's whether or not we do what we suggest to the Board of Selectmen, that they restrict it to 3, or whatever number this board thinks of. That's one way to do it. Another way to do it would be to talk to town council through Beth, that can we limit the number? One of the problems we wrestled with back in 2016 was that the state classified, to the best of my recollection, the state regulated the sale of retail marijuana as a retail store. So therefore, if we look at our definitions and our zoning, there is no mention of marijuana retail. It is under the broad stroke of retail. So right now, if the select board were to not cap it, anyone that has a retail location could go to the Board of Appeals, get a special permit, first have a host agreement, then go to any retail location. Once they had that and got by Boston, they could open a shop. We can't stop the 3, apparently right now, the 3 that are operating to sell to whomever, if they choose to do so. Just like a T-shirt shop, just like a gas station, just like any business in town. Those of us that run businesses, town can't stop who we sell it to. we can limit through different process by permit and numbers and location, but we can't really limit ownership. So as Alfred said, the reason why Dunkin' Donuts was able to come in is they went into a pre-existing restaurant. They're classified as a restaurant. Once that business is grandfathered, it's done. So I think we're learning also from the fact that Wellfleet folds up so much in the wintertime. We're losing restaurants left and right closing for the winter. We're losing motels, hotels, retail stores, everything. That's why I guess we're all still here, is because we love it and that quiet atmosphere. I think the planning board's got to really look at to say, now that we've had 3 or 4 stores, regardless of the ownership of those stores, we're lucky 2 out of the 3 are locals. We can't govern ownership, but we can look at the numbers. And I think that is what, at least I felt it was necessary for the planning board to hear Zach. He was upfront saying that he's an owner. Sure, he's looking out for his own interest, but I think we're also looking at if we allow, or if the select board allows more than the 3 that we currently have, it's going to put a pressure if the big corporations come in as to who survives. We can't stop the ownership, as I said before, but we can try and see if the planning board and the board of selectmen can use some reason in how many units we put out there. Bob?
Correct me if I'm wrong, but we already have 4 locations in town.
I was going to say the same.
Well, I think we only have 3.
There's 3 operating, but there are 4 locations.
They lost their host agreement
Yeah.
And I believe their special permit.
and a special
Although I'm
permit,
not 100%
because they've been closed. Well, have they been closed for 2 years?
No.
Well, at least
No.
more than a year, though.
No, but they violated it.
They violated,
Well, you don't violate, once you have a special
The
permit.
special permit required approval for change of ownership. And so did the host agreement. And so that's something I wanted to bring up to the gentleman's point.
Okay.
Sorry
all
to
right.
interrupt.
So we'd have to look to Board of Appeals, because that's a slightly different requirement or restriction that was put on it. But normally speaking, if someone doesn't renew after 2 years, that use and special permit goes by the wayside.
Right.
So right now, what we have is 3. We have South Wellfleet, corner of Main and Route 6, and
Bank Street.
Bank Street. Fairly well scattered. South Wellfleet, entrance in downtown. Seems to be adequate for those walking downtown to get to, seems adequate for Wellfleet turning in and out of on Route 6 in South Wellfleet, and the location that Zach has. So I think that's the aspect that we have to kind of look at, is to, we can't stop big business coming in. The town may be able to, in rejecting a host agreement for some valid reason. I would imagine they have to have some kind of valid reason to do it. But I think that maybe we should at least discuss, and the great thing about the planning board is, and Alfred spoke up, is we kick the hell out of these things when we discuss them. We don't hold back. Everybody's got their views, but we do it in a way that we all have the chance to speak to it, and then it's a majority vote. So that, all of that good input, all of that type of input is good when we're discussing these kind of things. So I think that is what I was getting out of this, is just the number. Alfred?
I have one more question.
Sorry,
Maybe
Bob.
you can answer it.
Yep.
Where in the town zoning or anywhere in the town of Wellfleet do we limit businesses?
We don't limit,
No,
well, we do limit it.
Specifically limiting businesses, a number of businesses.
By category.
By default, gas stations can only be in a certain area.
By zoning.
But there's no number attached to that.
No.
So if you can
So there's
find,
effectively a number. I mean, you could do the same thing.
but the town of Wellfleet has never limited gas stations. We have not limited gas stations. We've created zoning districts. We've had pre-existing non-conforming businesses that when they've expired, they've lost that area. So the town of Wellfleet, to the best of my knowledge, has never, ever limited businesses. We do not even have the right to
Alcohol.
limit liquor stores. That is done by the state, to the best of my knowledge, according to the population. So we are not in the position, before we go down this road, we may ask council or our planner where that puts us, because we have never limited a gas station, a grocery store. Zoning sometimes has allowed it to be difficult to do, but that does not mean that we, as a board or the town, has said no to something if you could find a place to go with it.
Well, we do in some ways because we pull out and have pulled out uses, for example, downtown. Back in the 80s, we pulled out a number of uses downtown that we didn't want to see go in. So we have done it in a circumventing way.
But the ones that were still available or viable, if there were any,
Yes,
could
absolutely.
stay, and they became a pre-existing non-conforming use,
Mhm.
which at that point, the town of Wellfleet cannot touch ownership of.
That's correct. But we've also seen, you know better than I do, Bob probably does as well, how many gas stations, when I came in '75, were out here in Wellfleet? 8. And now we look at how many we
Really?
have. And I think we're down to maybe 3 or 4 that are pumping gas. So it's done by economics, number one. There wasn't enough to survive. Number two, help, and different reasons that they've closed up and turned into landscaping businesses, or they've turned into the one across the street that went out from Cumberland Farms, went out because Cumberland Farms bought it and
Restricted it.
lost the license. So there is a way to do it. I'm not too sure what town council would say about it. As far as us saying, recommending a limitation in the zoning bylaw, but if that were illegal, or we decided against it, it still potentially leaves the option for the planning board, who has in the charter, the right to look at everything in Wellfleet from an economic, fiscal point of view, that fiscally, do we really need more than X a number of a particular specific nature? That's up to the board members.
May I just make, Mr. Chair, may I make a couple of points? I think that I tend to agree with you about the free market, honestly, and again, I have a horse in it, so you can, see that bias here. But this is a unique industry. It's probably the most regulated industry in the country. As far as the town's interest in it, they get 3% of sales tax revenue from these businesses that exist in the town. They have an interest in somewhat protecting and having fair, sustainable businesses in their town, because they're actually going to get more tax revenue by doing that than just allowing a race to the bottom or a revolving door. So I think what I'm asking is, Wellfleet's a partner in this, whether they like it or not. They're a partner in all 3 businesses, and why I think it's appropriate uniquely to limit the actual number, and that's why most other towns do so, is they're a partner in it, and so they have a stake in making sure these businesses are sustainable and functioning at a higher level than at the lowest common denominator, which can be very dangerous, actually. So this is a vice. I'm not, under any illusions about it, just like liquor. And the reason liquor stores are also regulated is we just don't want to go through that part of the business cycle as often, because it can lead to dangerous situations that will prove the opponents of this bill correct. There's a lot of people out there who think that this should be illegal and you should be arrested for having even a small amount on you still. And if we have businesses that are struggling at the lowest level during every single business cycle, you'll certainly have product disappear and go to places where it shouldn't go, because it's a restricted product. So we're not selling t-shirts. It's important to think about that way. And also the tax revenues are a direct benefit to the town, which will not go higher by having too much competition and constantly closing businesses.
Okay. Bonnie, sorry.
Yeah, so would a remedy possibly to just take the section 47 marijuana establishment bylaw that I think was passed, right? This one. And, take and maybe limited or granted at the discretion of the select board. So maybe it's just to talk to town council to see if there is a way to limit that, because if these are officially marijuana establishments, then I don't think that means that they can put, that somebody who sells a retail shop can then put in a medical establishment, a marijuana establishment.
Yes. Right now, if you've got a retail location, you can put a retail marijuana facility there. However, the caveat is they first must get, and correct me if I'm wrong, first thing they have to do is get a host agreement from the Board of Selectmen.
Yeah, right.
They have to find, you've been through it, I've never been through it, but I believe they have to find, it's not arbitrary and capricious. They've got to find a reason why either there's a cap on the number, or they've checked into problems in the past with that particular host, and said, no, we don't want you in town. But if they get by that and they've got a retail location, they would then go to the state and the Board of Appeals, but the Board of Appeals is kind of in a situation where you've already got a retail establishment there. We have, she's not going to speak to it, but once you have retail, normally speaking, you get to keep it. We've seen the parking, at least I've seen the parking in all three of these locations. The turnover is so quick in and out that you really never fill the requirement that we have for parking. It's not needed. Right. It's in and out. You look at Cumberland's and how many parking spaces we made them have. I think we were up to over 30. And any given day, you look at it, they're turning them over in 4 or 5 minutes. The only ones that stay there any longer are the ones that are pumping gas. But that's it. So I think that it's not even in our retail marijuana is not even in our use schedule. So some towns, I believe, do it as a use with retail marijuana, different, they label it, but.
If I may, as far as I'm aware, Wellfleet is the only town in the state that doesn't list adult use marijuana uses in the zoning bylaw.
Okay.
So we need to.
So we need to update that.
And that's just because it was postponed indefinitely.
And have other towns, to your knowledge, restricted the number?
Yes. And I wish I had researched that. I can provide that to the board
Well, I'm
after.
sure
I can
that
give you
if
the
you-
numbers and give you the,
If you
The
can,
stats on that.
help out Beth, send it over to Beth, and she'll look into it.
Through the secretary.
Yes,
yeah.
through the secretary.
And if I may, just one other interesting point to the discussion that's happening here is, again, to the uniqueness of this industry, because there's a host agreement, because there's a lot of rules at the state level. The town council did have that discussion when they were talking about the limits, and there may be, again, I'm not the town council, that's why I'm bringing this to this board and town council, but there may be residency requirements that you can put in place where this uniquely can be a small business that can be protected by a town like Wellfleet to keep its character. Whereas gas stations or what have you, they may not be limited to an actual number. There's something unique about this, so maybe this is the only one that's allowed to be. But from my perspective, anyhow, I'm not change subjects, but
Jerry?
uniquely, you might be able to do residency requirements.
Is it, who's,
Both Bob and Don want to speak.
which,
Yeah.
any idea who put their hand up
Not
first?
see it, no.
All right,
Oh,
Bob.
Don's saying.
Don says he did. Yes, Don?
No, no, Bob did.
Oh. Well, I called on you first. Bob's
Thank
not
you.
going anywhere.
Go ahead, Don.
Okay, what I was thinking of just quickly is the state regulates the number of liquor stores based on some puritanical reasoning, based on, I think, somebody mentioned the population in a town. Is that something we ought to look at and just say, you know, if it's one per 1,000, we've got 3,000 residents, we have 3 marijuana retailers, and that's the rule. If if the state makes that type of rule, it should be a reasonable thing to follow on a local level. Just my
That is, yeah, that's an alternative. I don't, and I'm not sure, I don't think it goes on the year-round population. I think it goes on another, because we wouldn't have as many liquor stores if we were only looking at 2,400 people.
Through you, Jerry, before,
Yes.
for Dawn, we have,
Yeah.
we have seasonal liquor stores that are on top of that. So if we were only allowed to say, we're going to use the magic number for 3 year-round liquor stores, we may have 6 in the summertime. So that number does change according to the season.
Okay, then the states allow seasonal liquor stores in
Yes.
their numbering.
Sorry to interrupt.
That's okay.
Yeah.
Bob?
Thank you.
Thanks, you. Bob?
Hi, thank you, Mr. Chair. So, very interesting discussions here. Alfred made some points concerning limiting businesses. So is it the planning board's position that we're to limit certain businesses in town? There was other points made about the economics of the industry. The marijuana industry as a whole, it tends to be flatlining. So revenues tend to be flatlining, and if in some places even starting to go down. And the proponent also made some comments about how he thought that the cultivation industry would never arrive in Wellfleet because it's just not economically viable.
Yeah.
So I'm just wondering if we're trying to come up with a solution to a problem that doesn't really exist. Wouldn't economics govern how many retail businesses are going to survive? If 2 or 3 or 4 more restaurants wanted to open up establishments in Wellfleet, they're free to do so. I don't think the existing restaurateurs would put up a fuss and say, no, we can't have any more restaurants. And if a couple of clothing stores wanted to open up in Wellfleet, I think they would be welcome. But I think the economic conditions are what's going to judge the survival of these businesses. With 3,500 year-round residents, and maybe 30,000 plus or minus for 4 months of the year, I don't know how these newer businesses would survive. So if we don't make any type of regulation right now, and another store did want to open, I'm wondering if just the economic conditions would affect the survival of these these 3 to 4 or 5 stores. Some will survive, some won't. Maybe one store would buy out one of their competitors. But isn't that the nature of commercial activity? I don't know about a large corporation, whatever a large corporation is. I don't know what you mean by a large corporation. Would they see establishing a business in Wellfleet with 3,500 year-round residents as being a good economic sound decision? Would Starbucks want to open a restaurant or an outlet in Wellfleet with 3,500 people? Maybe not. So although we can make recommendations to the select board that perhaps this is an issue which could be looked at, that it's been brought to our attention by the proponent, seems to have a valid reason, do we have to go ahead and start coming up with zoning regulations for this? Or is this a problem that doesn't really exist at the moment and may not even exist? Considering moving forward in the next 2, 3, 4 years, the economic conditions which we're all facing. Thank you.
General question in sale of marijuana, and you don't have to answer it if you don't want to, but are you regulated as to what you can sell a product for?
The price? No.
Okay. So, Bob, to your point, just for sake of conversation, if your locals are involved and they have to sustain themselves with one location, but a marijuana corporate like Dunkin' Donuts comes in and making money hand over fist in other areas across the country and want to move in here, they simply can drop their prices, not have to buy out one of their own individuals, but would simply come in, drop the price, send their competition packing, and then take it over.
And then raise prices.
And then to raise the prices right back up again. So,
And to complicate that, the town gets 3%. So they're invested in supporting that option.
so it's sort of, it's not an easy situation to look at, but I think it's at least something we probably should kick around. Anyway, Al?
If I may, I see this problem not at all as being bound specifically to just the marijuana industry. This is one of the reasons I was always complaining so much about the town before I got on the board, because the locals here are constantly being pinched by lots of external forces that we have no control over. The amount of capital that the locals here have to use to buy businesses, buy real estate for commercial use or for residential use is relatively low compared to the amount of capital that outside elements have at their disposal. So it's very interesting that we brought up gas station as an example for regulating businesses. The town might not regulate the number of gas stations in the town, but practically speaking, Cumberland Farms already has. They bought the Wave gas station, they put a covenant on it, and then they sold it to somebody else so that that property effectively is no longer able to be a gas station. So whatever the number of potential gas station locations there was, it's now been limited by one. I do also like the idea of the free market, and I do think that people should be able to be self-sufficient, but I think the reality of the economic situation is one where we are going to need to have more and more creative ways of protecting ourselves in this community. It is somewhat dubious, legally speaking. We cannot regulate who owns businesses. I'm sure the state constitution or the federal constitution would consider it exclusionary in some way, and they would overrule us. But I can think of one example that is curious to me: shell fishermen. You must be a Wellfleet resident to have a shell fishing license in this town. I don't know if is there any more thread to pull off of that, but just because something seems like it will be tricky does not necessarily mean that we shouldn't pursue it. Once again, I don't think this is affecting just the marijuana industry whatsoever. This is all industries in Wellfleet, and for that matter, the housing problem that we have as well. So it will take a lot of work with town council, and it will take a lot of back and forth and a lot of spitballing, but this is a massive sword of Damocles hanging over the town of Wellfleet. And if we allow elements of the town to be eroded over time, then there will be nothing left of this community.
Okay. Anything else?
Chair, may I just respond
Yes.
to one of the gentlemen? I don't know if it was Robert or Don who spoke last, but I just want to make the point is, I think that you may ultimately be correct in that the free market will express itself and where we'll end up, maybe where Al's point, with them self-regulating after they've all come in with, try to beat the lower prices down and then kind of try to restrict through zoning or putting covenants on different properties that they buy. But it's what happens between now and then that's important to think about. So the market will shake out, and I plan to be here regardless. We've put a lot into that place, and we're going to be here regardless, but I think that it would be just sad and not as good to see the revolving door continue, even for the other stores.
If I may add something, I didn't.
Yes.
To speak directly to Beth, when I came to your office, we were speaking about the seasonal housing or the seasonal community legislation that the state's putting forth. We discussed mostly about topics that were, that we're talking about housing specifically, accessory dwelling units and things like that. But perhaps if the state is drafting up this legislation that is theoretically supposed to protect or encourage seasonal communities, this might be one of the avenues that we could use to try to include some element to that legislation that would give us the power to be a little bit more creative with our bylaws. Once again, I don't know the feasibility of all of that, but I do think it's something that we need to discuss more or examine further.
All right. Spent an hour on it,
Thank you.
but I do thank you for the presentation, Zach.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you for staying.
I think I'd like to poll the board right now to say, does the board want to continue this discussion in some manner, shape, or form, or do you want to leave it basically to the Board of Selectmen? Is that a fair question to ask you?
Yes.
All right.
Well, I guess I'd like, there's another possibility,
What's that?
which is to ask Beth to consult with town council about even the feasibility of putting a cap on the number. We ought to know whether it's legally possible before we keep debating it.
Well, it's not just putting a cap on the number, but if every town has a zoning bylaw related to marijuana, maybe we should look at those. Some of them might have caps, some of them might be very different than having a cap. But if we're the only one without a bylaw, seems to me we have plenty to look at.
Yeah.
Okay, so what we could do is I could ask Beth, because normally if she had any input, you had any input, you'd jump in. So far you haven't. I haven't asked you to, but if you do want to.
I do. I actually would ask Zach if he would like to provide some of that information to the secretary, since you are advocating for this, to provide, municipalities that may have a cap or for what you're advocating, provide some of that information, do the initial research, and provide that to the secretary, and then she can provide that to me.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. I can compile a list of all the other municipal zoning bylaws that exist, as well as try to look into when this was discussed between the select board and legal counsel previously, because I remember a discussion talking about residency requirements, such as the Oysterman.
Would you,
Possibility.
number one, he'll get you the information, but number two, I think it would be appropriate, based on the discussion we've heard tonight, to get some additional information from town council. Would you prefer to do that, or do you want me to do it?
I can do that.
Okay. So, because I think it's probably Carolyn you're going to talk to. I think they're well-versed now, and they were before, but they're well-versed on what other towns have done. I mean, they've written Easthams, they've written a number of other towns on the Cape, all over the state. So they have ideas of what the Attorney General will and will not pass, and whether or not it becomes a problem, and should it be a general law, zoning law, or just recommendation. But I think probably initial conversation with her counsel would be helpful. So I'm going to leave it at that, not even take a vote, and then bring it up when we have more information, and then you can decide. Unless you want me to poll the board to see if you want to go any further. I'll do whatever the board wants.
I think when we get some information, we should just put it on the agenda.
Okay, I will do that. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
This is my email address.
Mr. Chair, it's Bob here.
Bob,
Can I make
Robert,
one last comment?
I'm sorry?
Can I make one last comment on this?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I want to thank the proponent for bringing this subject up, because to the comments from some of the planning board members, maybe it's time the town, all the boards and committees that are involved with the economic viability of the town, start working together to see how can we improve and guarantee the economic viability of the town. So maybe this has been a good conversation in that this is something that maybe the town has to think about on a more holistic approach, getting all the various boards and committees involved, and take a look at this issue as we move forward. So I want to thank Zach for bringing it to our attention. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Take care. Thank you.
Good night.
Okay. Planning board schedule. I'm going to skip bylaws for the moment, jump down to 4.
No.
Schedule. I will admit I've got a couple things on my plate, and I haven't really studied this to any great depth.
I thought it was amazing.
It is, to see it in black and white, it's I guess this is basically to file with senior center so they have an idea that we want the rooms for these dates. They're changeable at any given time, but they need something posted, and we need to post it. So that's the first step that we have not done in the past.
Yeah, that's part of it. I actually did schedule 2026 for you guys already, so you have the room for all of those dates. But also alerting the public to your dates, and also when the filing deadlines are, and the supplemental materials when they need to be in. That's just a way of helping applicants know and navigate the application process.
Okay, so I guess one of the first things that popped into me popped out at me. Schedule's one thing, I mean, that's clear, although I can go over it, but A&R, you're suggesting that filing an A&R application would be 2 weeks prior to the meeting date. We can't, to my knowledge, restrict when anyone wants to file an approval not required or a subdivision.
They're more like a month.
Yeah, this just says a month.
It's almost a month in advance.
Well, there's asterisks for A and R, that they, maybe we could say should be, not shall be, 2 weeks. Because technically, yes, legally speaking, you're right, Jerry. They can file it at any time, but to request that they are filed 2 weeks before, so that we can have a meeting on the A&R.
Well,
But it's not a legal requirement that they have to.
Well, we just, without names, gotta be careful here. There is no state requirement as to when somebody can file a subdivision or a approval not required A&R plan. We just had one that the day, 2 days, or the day after we closed, they filed and knew that the 21 days we weren't going to meet, and so it's automatic. We have a mechanism in place that the chair, and I believe the vice chair, can sign alone to rectify that problem. But I don't know, because we've never ventured into this one, Beth, as to say, can we even suggest that they submit 2 weeks prior to the date? I think, quite honestly, I personally would feel better striking that completely. It's their problem. If they want to file the day before a meeting, and they're going to look at the schedule online and know there's 21 days, and that we're going to have to call for a special meeting, that's the game they can play. I don't like it, but that's why we allow the chair and the vice chair to vote on it, and if they feel it's not, well, there's a situation right there. I mean, any 21 days that I've had to face as a chair, I've signed the plan. I've never had a situation where someone's filed an approval not required that I was going to turn down, or I felt the board was going to turn down. Recently, we've had a couple that come in and we say, okay, fine, we're not going to have a special meeting, but you're not going to get any signatures on it either. And one of the last ones we did turn down for good reason. So I guess I'm expressing my concern about stating that. I know where Jen, where you're going as far as secretary at this moment, is saying, okay, the more time I have to schedule these meetings, the better I am. When you're applying for example, Board of Appeals, you need to set a time and a date, and you dictate when that time is, and you have to have it within a certain period of time. When they file a definitive plan, for example, we have 90 days in which to have the hearing. We can't even have a hearing within 30 days because the Board of Health has to step in. So I would feel a little bit more comfortable taking out and just consistently leaving it that if you're going to submit anything, if you feel it necessary that Thursday is a little tight for a meeting the following Wednesday, and you said, okay, we want to have it in on Tuesday instead of a Thursday, so that's a week and a day. I think that's probably reasonable. So I think maybe that way we should kind of go, and see how that works.
Also, I would just note that we stole this from Truro. We've used their format. So it's working that way in Truro. Whatever you guys want is fine with me. I'm not even going to be the secretary, so it's, but
I don't necessarily always agree with Truro.
okay.
I'll say
but
that. I'll say that in the public.
There's precedence, that's all. But if you want to take the A&R out, that's totally fine. The rest of it, though, like for the regular plans, we need to be able to advertise in the newspaper, and that's why we were going with that kind of a deadline.
Okay, well, anytime that we have to advertise, for example, a subdivision, we have 90 days before we have to have that first hearing. Just because they file today doesn't mean it goes on the next agenda. We can advertise that anytime we choose, so long as we advertise it and have the first meeting within 90 days. And I got a yes, right? Okay. So we are not under the same gun that Board of Appeals and maybe Board of Health is under. We have a lot more latitude, and I think, generally speaking, if someone were to even submit 2 weeks prior to, we wouldn't hear that definitive plan for at least a month. So I'm not really overly concerned. I'm more concerned with the secretary having the appropriate time to submit, to get the stuff organized and back out to the board members. So if, in fact, we need, Beth, if you're running into a situation either with Jan or the new hire, if you feel, okay, I need a couple more extra days, I don't see any problem with that. And I think you can work that out fairly easily. Is my opinion. Anybody, Bob?
Isn't it reasonable to suggest that they take 2 weeks as a minimum? Or an A&R?
Yeah, just, it would be,
Gives everybody a
it would be
chance to-
nice.
Well, if they submit an A&R 2 weeks prior to our next date, and something happens and we have to cancel wintertime or summertime, 7 days later, that's automatically approved. It's fine when an approval not required plan comes in and it's by the book. We're not going to turn it down. It becomes a problem when something's trying to be slipped through the cracks, that all of a sudden we're forced into having a meeting if we're going to turn it down. So, I don't know, I guess we can work.
Jerry, we're better off having meetings because the last A&R plans we've had don't meet the requirements, but the stamp on the corner says it does. And then when you ask the engineer about it, we've always come out of the weeds and found out it didn't meet it. So I mean, to push an A&R, it would be nice to get them 2 weeks, but the state says we don't have that luxury. So I mean, that sometimes we are going to have meetings, whether we want to or not, on an A&R, or we're going to let it go. And the problem is when you let it go, if some of the ones that we didn't let go made the dates, they would have passed even though they were wrong, technically illegal, but because we didn't say that, it made them right. I mean, that's the
So
difficulty with an A&R, unless I'm incorrect.
Yeah, and that's kind of why I would prefer not having it 2 weeks. Most everyone, Chet and Dick, Slade Associates would never pull a trick like that with us for the simple reason they knew they were going to be back here every single week. So don't upset the apple cart, but some of these newer engineers are out for the client and they'll do whatever the client wants them to do when they don't care. So I think I'll gladly take it up again, but I think I'd rather see it left alone and do it that way, but I'd like to think about it. Now that it's planted in all of your minds, let's bring it up at the next meeting and see where it goes, and Beth and I can talk a little more. Al?
I've got a question.
Absolutely.
I'm just sort of deducing, obviously, I'm new here somewhat.
Ask the
That
questions.
the A&R designation is a fabrication of the states, and otherwise, we would be permitting or denying applications for subdivisions that are somehow against the zoning control bylaw, or the subdivision control bylaw. So an A&R theoretically is not at all breaking any of the town's bylaws, and you're
Yes,
saying
it
that
is.
an A&R.
Approval not required plan.
Right.
Is simply stating you are not creating a new road, which is a subdivision.
Okay.
That is the only caveat. So when approval not required plan comes in, there could be all kinds of zoning violations as far as setbacks on existing houses, a lot of different things. All it is simply saying is you did not create a new road. Now, I believe, I'd have to look to Beth, that you still have to have adequate access, which we had a problem with on one of the on one of the approval not requires a couple months ago. But if they meet the frontage, I don't think they have to meet the area.
They do.
Not if they don't change the lot frontage. I'd have to check it.
If you're creating a new lot, Jerry, you have to meet the frontage, you have to meet the floodplain restrictions, because the
Yes.
floodplain restrictions
But-
calculate the amount of land that actually is used, because it's a different mechanism for your square footage.
Right, and if they don't have the frontage, what they can do is, let's say somebody's got 40,000 square feet, they can do 135 feet of frontage, 30,000 square feet in a residential area. They can have 10,000 square feet left over, and they can deed that off. They label it not buildable, and they can deed it off to Conservation Trust. That happens a lot on an approval not required. So you can have zoning violations, basically, on an approval not required. So long as you have access, frontage, if it's a buildable lot. If it's an existing lot, I believe that's the same case, but basically the state is saying it is not a subdivision. That's what you're determining. There's a couple caveats there, but that's the main difference.
And theoretically, somebody can turn one of those in the Tuesday before, and
They could turn it, what we do is if we close, right now, prior to noon on Thursday, before our next meeting. So last Thursday at noon was the cutoff for anything to go on to tonight's agenda, if I choose to put it on.
okay.
So if they wait till Friday to file an approval not required, it doesn't hit today's meeting, and we don't meet, for example, they look on the chart and they say, okay, you're not meeting again until January 21st, 2026. There's 21 days right there.
Okay.
If they do it the day after we have, if they did it last
So
Friday.
There's 21 days after any time they file an A&R.
Exactly.
Okay.
The 21 days start.
So this schedule, however it is, we may find ourselves in a situation to have an emergency meeting because we need to address something particular.
Because all members get a copy of that approval not required plan. If I normally, if I see a problem, or I speak to somebody and somebody says, Jerry, I saw the plan, or Chair, I saw the plan, I got some questions on it, I'm not going to sign it, but the 21 days could expire, I'm going to have to set up a meeting so the board can discuss it to say, no, we are not signing that approval not required for X, Y, and Z reasons.
Well, as long as that mechanism exists, the emergency meeting that would be.
Yes,
Then,
that exists.
then I would agree with you that
Yep, okay. Yeah, I can schedule, so long as I have an appropriate time, I can schedule, all I need is 48 hours, not including a holiday, but weekends included, right?
Weekends, so it would be business days, so,
It's always business days?
yeah.
Okay, so long as we have 48 hours of business days, I can schedule a meeting.
I don't want to hold us up anymore, but also, how does that interplay with the open meeting laws and the requirement for recording and all that? Because we couldn't, for example, could we have an emergency meeting in a boardroom at the library if
No.
if this room wasn't available?
Oh, damn, good question. We are still hybrid, correct, Beth?
Correct, yes.
Okay.
But we can have,
We could have a fully remote.
right,
If-
but we
if
could also
that's what
have
you're
it
getting at.
fully at this building and not Zoom? Or do they have to be Zoom if we're hybrid?
Hybrid is how we operate, so,
Yes.
yeah.
So we would have to make sure that the room was available. And right now, I think we only have this room. Is this the only room?
Virtually Zoom, then you
But-
don't have to be in this room.
But if it's,
That was the
if
basement
it
of town
is
hall.
ultimately fully remote, obviously, we don't need a room, but I don't think it, and Jen, I'll defer to you, but I don't think it technically always has to be in this location.
That's right. There are situations where you can have even a hybrid meeting can be solely Zoom.
Okay.
But I think it can't go the other way around.
I can tell you, it generally doesn't happen.
We'll start to complicate things, so.
No, all questions, because it makes us think, believe me. There's no silly question, because it makes us all think about what we're doing. Yes, Bonnie?
Yeah, so I'm finding this schedule,
Bonnie needs a mic.
oh, I'm finding this schedule confusing, because it says that, okay, that the supplemental material is due by Tuesday of the prior week. So that's, but underneath this, it says Thursday. So did we make a decision that we're going to make it Thursday in this third column?
Where does it say Thursday?
Tuesday in this third column? And did we just say also that Jerry, that you want to eliminate the first column completely?
Yes.
That's good.
Eliminate the first column completely, number one.
Okay,
Number two,
The second column is the data comes to us.
yes.
right. And the
That's,
other,
the second one is the public hearing date.
right, so it's also, but it's public hearing and meeting, right? They're not all public hearings, or is every meeting a public
Every
hearing?
meeting is a public meeting.
Got it, okay,
Public meeting is what we have tonight.
I know.
Public hearing is a different story. That is an advertised public hearing.
Right,
So we have a public hearing within a public meeting.
right.
And the supplemental materials are due to our secretary on the Tuesday, and they come to us on the Thursday. That's how I read that.
Right. Okay.
Is that the way you mean it, Jen? Jen?
No, I think I meant either Tuesday or Thursday. And I don't remember which one we decided on, Beth. Did we stick with the Thursdays? I think, no, it should have been Thursdays, and I wrote Tuesday up here. That was erroneous. It
So
should-
let's, okay, let me step back for 1 second.
Yep.
Based on what you both have been facing, is Thursday giving you enough time, or should we consider moving it to Tuesday and moving it up a couple days? That's the question. You don't have to answer it tonight. If you want to talk about it, if you want to I mean, you've got a new secretary coming in. You may say, gee, Jerry, Chair, and the rest of us, can we try Tuesday? I've got to go to you and the secretary to say what works for you. It's got to work for you because we know we're going to have a meeting on Wednesday, January 21st.
Right.
We need the information in a reasonable time. Thursday's been a reasonable time. But if you can get the information out to us on Tuesday, that gives us a full week to analyze it. But can you kick it out?
Do you want to answer that one, Beth? I can answer from my perspective, but, you know.
I would, yeah, if you can answer from your perspective, being a secretary for so many committees and boards, that would be great, thank you.
Sure. Yeah, even with 5 boards or whatever I have right now, Thursday has been fine. That has not been extra complicated. And if the secretary who gets hired is just doing this one board, it will not be an issue, I think.
Okay, so I'm going to suggest, let's leave it as is, as it has been, and the 12 noon on Thursday is the cutoff date. How's that? Board members okay with that?
Oh, so that
Yeah.
little note needs to change.
The Tuesday at the top is a typo,
It
effectively.
should have been
Right,
Thursday.
it should
So it's gonna be Thursday.
at
And
noon.
two-
Well,
Yep.
external people who want to send
Oh,
something to
God,
us
yeah, no.
have to get
Yeah,
it to us by
Jerry?
noon.
Yes.
Eliminating the first column is not what we want to do. We just want to strike the provision for A&R plans. We still need a 1-month filing deadline or anything else for our agenda, yes?
No. Filing
You're filing what?
Filing deadline is always been the Thursday before.
Even for a, what do you call it, subdivision?
Subdivision plan? or-
Well, no, subdivision can be filed anytime. There is no, we can't really put a date as to when they have to submit.
We can't suggest to them that if they want to have it heard on the 21st of January, we need it by the 22nd of
No,
December?
because we don't know what's on the schedule, so the chair does not want to be put in a position that because if you say to somebody on a subdivision
Have to have the meeting.
that you got to submit to get a month ahead of time, or 3 weeks ahead of time, or 2 weeks, they're thinking they're going to be on the agenda. No, we can't even hear it for 30 days, because it's got to go to the water department, the health department first, for 30 days. So I can't even schedule it till it comes back from them.
Gotcha.
So we've got other time limits. That's why the state gives us 90 days to hold a public hearing once it's submitted, because the day they submit to the town clerk on a subdivision, it also has to be submitted to the Board of Health. That starts their 30-day click. If they don't give us an answer, you usually do, but if Board of Health doesn't meet, for example, or they've got a full schedule and doesn't review it, then after 30 days, we can then schedule a public hearing. So sometimes, if time is of the essence, the chair can say, all right, you submitted it, today's the 15th, we got 15 more days, I can say to advertise the hearing for something 21 days out. All right? So I think basically, yes, Bob, that first one can go by the wayside completely.
All right, so we'll get rid of the first column, keep the
Yep.
second column, and change.
So what you're recommending, if I understand this correctly,
I'm keeping this.
is the first meeting in 2026 would be the January 21st.
Yeah, because January 1st is the first Wednesday, and I don't think you want to come in on a holiday.
Is it?
Yeah.
I thought it was Thursday.
Oh, no, it's a Thursday. So it's,
That's why I'm asking.
oh, my God. Yeah, this should be the 7th should be on, no.
And I got a lot on
Well,
my
I did
mind.
have the 7th on there, but then, Beth, you took the 7th off. There was a reason.
There was a reason. The reason was if we have to advertise anything in the paper and the let's see. Let's see. What was my reason? The Thursday before is Christmas. So that was my reason.
Okay.
So
yeah,
it's a
they wouldn't be
holiday.
able to get any paperwork in.
Right.
That's right.
And now, the 24th, we're out at noon.
Oh, okay,
So,
now I'm,
so
okay.
It
for
was
that
very
reason,
logical.
because of the holidays,
Yeah.
it would be hard to get packages out to planning board members.
All right. So I'm going to guess at this point that I'm going to say leave the schedule as is, unless anybody else has got some dates you want to mess with, because it looks like there's one meeting in July, 2 meetings in August. I would take and leave the meeting in August as the 19th and take out the 5th, because we usually only meet once in July and once in August.
Sure.
So I'm going to recommend that you take out August 5th and leave it August 19th. Then you've got 2 in September, 2 in October, 2 in November. All right.
What about a motion just to accept the schedule of meeting dates as amended by you?
You can, if you want to do it that way, sure, or just leave it. But if you want to make a motion, that's fine. Because,
Move that we accept the schedule of meeting dates as amended by Jerry.
any second?
I'll second.
Yeah, it's Bob here, I'll second.
Seconded
Yep.
by Bob. Anyone opposed? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, unanimous. Focus, Jerry. Where are we going?
To the
Okay.
bylaw discussion.
ADU and seasonal.
Oh, I thought we were going to do cluster.
We do have cluster, but there are no changes from the
Okay.
last meeting.
Where I'm going with is this.
Okay.
And I think we've spoke about this with the Board of Selectmen. They generally had said publicly and to me, they didn't want to see any zoning bylaws on the annual town meeting.
What?
Yes. They want them on the fall meeting, so that way they're guaranteed to get a quorum. However, if it's an emergency or something that we feel adamant on, I can always ask. So I guess where I'm going with this is publicly with the board here. And you, because you're working on both of those, all 3 of them. This is now, I'm looking at the first meeting in January 21st. That's giving us February, March, all of a sudden just 60 days to get a zoning bylaw to them. And is it necessary in your mind or planning boards of any of those 3 being necessary to get on the annual town meeting? Do we feel the cluster zoning bylaw change is imperative enough to put it on the annual, or can it wait to the fall town meeting? Okay. I heard fall from the vice chair here. So now we come back to the seasonal, which we really still haven't got a grip on. The ADU bylaw from the state is already on the books. So we still have 2 concurrent ADU bylaws. We have the state bylaw, and we have our zoning bylaw for ADU. They're running concurrently. I strongly believe we have a serious problem with ADUs in the first place because of health reasons. Board of Health, meaning septic.
Yeah.
We're really handcuffed with so many of these lots that they have to take bedrooms out of their house in order to do an ADU, and we're running into lot coverage problems as well. So I don't see this as an emergency situation, but the state regulation, even though it's not in our bylaws, is effective, right?
Yes, so the state regulation is effective.
As of February last year, this year, right?
Yes, so it supersedes the local zoning regarding ADUs. So for example, somebody comes in and wants to build an ADU on their property, it has to be either 50% of the square footage of the principal dwelling unit or 900 square feet, whichever is less. So for example, if somebody has their principal dwelling unit is 1,500 square feet, the maximum of the ADU is 750 square feet. So, but it does have to still comply with Title V, setbacks, all the reasonable requirements, height, and.
Right,
the-
so even though it's not in our zoning bylaw, it's effective.
It is effective, yes. correct.
However, concurrent to that, we have not negated our ADU bylaw. So if someone says, I can only build a 500 square foot ADU by the state regulation, because I only have 1,200 square feet, they could always go to our bylaw by right and build a 1,200 square foot unit. It doesn't negate, this is a question. I believe their ADU does not negate our zoning bylaw, ADU bylaw.
The
Is that a
first.
loaded question, Beth?
The first ADU to be built should be a protected use ADU, which would be the one that is either 50% of the principal dwelling unit or 900 square feet, whichever is max. But they couldn't come for a first ADU and say, under, Wellfleet, we're going to build a 1,200, which is under Wellfleet zoning, a 1,200 square foot ADU and get a special permit. The first one has to be protected use ADU per the state, is my.
Okay, I see. The way I was looking at it, it was a little different. And I probably am wrong, but the state put in their ADU bylaw on all 314 municipalities in town, in the state of Massachusetts, except for Boston. Because most of those towns did not have an ADU. Therefore, they established an ADU bylaw. But I think what you're adding to it, which is a change in my mind, is those towns that do have ADUs, you're indicating that they have basically overruled our zoning bylaw. I don't understand how they can do that.
So the first, according to the Affordable Homes Act and, the CMR, the regs, the state regs, yes, the protected first ADU would be a protected use ADU, and that would be as of right. If there is going to be a second ADU built on a property, then it may be done through, by special permit per the municipality's regulations.
Yes, but it would still have to fall under their regulations of 50% of the floor area.
Only the first protected use ADU would have to. Second ADU, if it is done through special permit under a municipality's zoning bylaws, could be larger, like 1,200 square feet.
Seems backwards.
Well, I thought the state was saying the first ADU is by right. Anyone over that, under the state regulations, still has to follow it, but it's a special permit.
Right, so it could be larger.
Well, let's say Wellfleet didn't have, and this is for all of you benefit here, because it's a learning process for all of us. Let's say Wellfleet didn't have an ADU bylaw for 1,200 square feet. The state passed the ADU bylaw. The first one's by right, and it's restricted to 50% of floor area of the house. Existing property. They want to build a second one. Well, Wellfleet doesn't have an ADU bylaw, so they still have to go, that second one's by special permit. Don't they have to follow the state ADU bylaw of 50% regulation?
Unless there is a specific provision, well, if there is no specific provision within that particular municipality's bylaws, then yes. But if there are specific provisions for a special permit ADU, then they would follow those provisions under the municipality's bylaws.
So our bylaw, our ADU bylaw, has in essence been tweaked to say you can't kick in the 1,200 square foot ADU in Wellfleet's bylaw until you do a 50% ADU. Is that correct?
Correct.
Everybody understand that?
Seems backwards, but yeah, I understand it.
I have a question.
So do I.
Yeah.
Go ahead, you go first.
Our bylaw, as I understand it, requires a year-round deed restriction, and the state one doesn't.
That's correct.
Right. So can we, in our bylaws, ask that the first ADU that is protected use be, restrict that to a year-round? We can.
Yes.
Good.
But we adopted the seasonal community,
Which allows it.
which allows
Yes.
anything over 30 days. There's the, I gotta say, I am still confused over, and this is why we have to, I think we need, I don't think it's gonna be on the, I know it's not gonna be on the annual, to get this seasonal designation straight in our minds.
Absolutely. We need the final regulation from the state for seasonal, because I think there is inconsistency in the state ADU and the seasonal communities. So until we see what is final for the seasonal communities, this is why I was recommending we do put it off, so that we can make sure it is internally consistent for our zoning.
Okay. So
So
I'm
there is
gonna-
no emergency in terms of going forward
Okay.
with this, which was your initial question.
I know, I threw a lot at you guys.
30 days.
I'm going to suggest this
That's 10.
to board members,
Oh,
that
good. Yeah.
you allow me to instruct ask Beth, to notify the Board of Selectmen the reasoning why we don't have anything on the annual regarding the ADU bylaw, because it's still a work in progress. We have not thrown it under the table. We're not ignoring it, but there's still a lot of questions bringing in the seasonal clarification or seasonal added community of Wellfleet. The second question I would like you to ask town council, I'm not doubting you in the least bit, but I would like it in writing from town council that the way you just explained that the first one is by the state, the second one would go to us, and they can't do one under our bylaw. I would like to see that in writing from town council. I think, number one, I think the planning board should see it. And number two, I think from a point of view of the building inspector, I think he would need it. Because I think at some point he might be confronted with that situation, and I think he needs something from council. Is there any board member that feels differently about that?
I think it would be helpful eventually at town meeting also.
Yes, I believe that's the case.
Yeah, I think we should chase that hypothetical and try to get a little bit more clarification. I mean, if we could ask somebody at the state level beyond just our town council, because that is very confusing and it seems backwards, downright backwards. So if we could get as much clarification about that as possible, we would be grateful.
Because they've probably, this thing was just put out there, and there were a lot of problems. We're still wrestling with the ADU and the National Seashore situation. That's still an ongoing conversation. But I think probably town council, as widely as they represent communities across the state, probably has run into a couple situations where they now have more information and clarity on this. And I think for both the planning board to get correct information and the building inspector to have something to rely on in case he gets pressured, because it will happen, I'm sure it will. Alfred, you thinking?
No, Jerry, I just think that the fact that we're trying to move forward on something that's necessary without knowing where our boundaries are, it's been tough. I mean, we've sat here and wondered why we haven't done something, and we really don't know what the state's finished up with. I think that that's typical maybe, but I mean, I don't want to.
It's frustrating.
It is. I mean, we usually have more motivation towards bylaws that we think we should be fixing. But, we've never had I've never been here where the state has said something, and we don't know what the final answer is for us to go forward with. And to hear the way that our ADU may be functioning with the state's thing is confusing. Yeah. Maybe backwards is a nicer word. I might have used others, but no, I think we need to.
Okay.
I think if Beth could get that for us, it'd be excellent.
Yeah. Okay.
I will do that.
Thank you. We hit the bylaws. Minutes from October 15th. Anyone have any changes or a motion?
I reviewed the minutes on the electrical file emailed to us by Jennifer earlier this week, perhaps today, and the minutes look good to me, so I'd like to make a motion to pass the minutes from the October 15th meeting as they were presented.
Any second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? I'm just going to run it down. Bonnie?
Aye.
Al?
Aye.
Aye.
I'm going to abstain.
Aye.
I'm going to abstain.
Alfred abstained.
I abstain.
You abstained. Okay.
Did you get
Any liaison reports?
Jerry?
Yes.
You got to get their vote.
Oh, the only one I really have to get is, I'm sorry,
Donna.
Manny, yeah. Yes, you vote yes?
Yes, yes.
Thank you. I'm envious and confusing. All I see is your backdrop It's killing me.
One is snow and one is.
It's 32 degrees outside. And you're sit-
I did intentionally.
Can you tell where Don and I are located geographically? Pretty clear, isn't it? I start skiing tomorrow.
Two ends of the spectrum, 180 degrees there. All right, so the next meeting will be January 21st.
Oh, not December
December?
17th?
Oh,
Still in 2025?
Here's your Christmas spirit.
yeah, does,
Can always schedule it, and if there's nothing on it, we can cancel it.
when is it?
17.
We always put subject to change on ours, in case, when we announce our next meetings, we say that it's subject to change, so that if we don't need to, we just don't put an agenda up and it doesn't get advertised.
And if we don't, we notify everybody there's no meeting anyway. I strongly believe we're gonna cancel it, because Beth, you're not gonna have any information in 2 weeks. If an approval not required plan come in, that's the only reason. I can still sign it unless there's a problem. I did get a heads up that the one that we turned down might be coming back at some point, but who knows?
That needs to be looked at. No matter how that comes back, it needs to be looked at. I don't-
Thoroughly looked at.
I don't believe I've seen one so wrong yet.
So I will leave it there on the 17th, but I can tell you, I can suggest to all of you that I really don't think we're going to have it, but I'm going to leave it there for now.
Okay.
And when's the next one?
Are you sticking around for the winter? You are, okay.
I won't.
That's right. All right. If we don't have it, Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays to all of you.
Yeah.
Because the next meeting after that is not till the 21st of January. So enjoy the holiday if we don't have a meeting,
Yeah,
okay?
great.
Thanks,
Thank you.
everybody.
Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
I second it.
He beat you
Okay.
to it. Anyone opposed? And you enjoy Canada and you enjoy Florida.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much. Have a happy holiday.